Hello, I'm that geeky gamer, and welcome to my show. You know, first impressions can be deceiving, especially when it comes to films. Just think about it. How many of us haven't at one time or another gone to the cinema, seen a film, and thought it was great, only to realize upon further viewing and consideration of the same film that it's not actually as good as we first thought? This is what happened to me with today's film. Before I sat down to review it, I was ready to praise it as a really awesome film. But I realized that it's not actually as good as most of us think. With that said, let's get this review started, as we take a closer look at the 2002 Spider-Man film. At the very beginning, we're introduced to our main character, Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire. Peter is a pretty geeky and unpopular kid, not even able to get a seat on the school bus as no one wants to sit next to him. Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about how that feels. It's not like anything like that ever happened to me. Excuse me. So other than being a hopeless and lonely geek, Peter's also hopelessly in love with the film's love interest, Mary Jane Watson, played by Kirsten Dunst. However, he is, as most other geeks, too shy to do anything about it. Anyway, it turns out that Peter and his class is going on a field trip to a university and its science department. Upon arrival to the university, Peter is greeted by his friend Harry Osborn, played by James Franco, who arrives in a fancy luxurious car with his father, Norman Osborn, played by Willem Dafoe. So Peter, Harry and the rest of the class are taken on a tour of the university, and they stop at some sort of science lab where the researchers and scientists are working on creating genetically enhanced super spiders, using various species of regular spiders as a base. One of them is missing. We see that it has actually escaped and is sitting in a web in the ceiling. Gee, I wonder if this will have some sort of significance on the rest of the film. Nah, probably not. So, when the class is about to move on, Peter uses his job as a photographer for the school paper as an excuse to talk to and take some pictures of Mary Jane. While he photographs her, the super spider from before lowers itself onto Peter's hand. It then bites Peter and runs off. While the tour at the university is going on, we see that Norman Osborn and his company, Oscorp, is demonstrating one of their newest inventions, a so-called glider, to their board of directors as well as a crew of military men led by General Slocum. However, the real reason General Slocum is there is to check on the progress of Oscorp's human performance enhancers. The General informs Norman that he has given Oscorp's competitor, Quest Aerospace, the go-ahead to build a prototype of a new exoskeleton weapon system.
They test in 2 weeks.
And if your so-called performance enhancers have not had a successful human trial by that date, I'm going to pull your funding. I'm going to give it to them.
We then cut to Peter's home, where we are introduced to Aunt May and Uncle Ben. No, not that Uncle Ben, this Uncle Ben. They are played by Rosemary Harris and Cliff Robertson, and they both give an excellent performance. Anyway, as Uncle Ben is looking over the job section of the paper, Peter comes home but heads right up to his room as he's not feeling too well. Meanwhile, Norman and Dr. Strom are preparing to test the human performance enhancers.
Norman? Norman! Norman!
After Norman kills Dr. Strahm, we cut to Peter, who is lying on the floor in his room. He wakes up to discover that he has undergone a few changes over the night.
Weird.
Peter,
Yeah?
are you alright?
I'm fine.
At school, Peter notices that a fork is stuck to his hand. Realizing that he's probably in trouble, Peter tries to run away, but Flash starts to fight him. He then runs off, being a little freaked out. After looking at his spider bike, Peter realizes what's going on and begins to test out his new abilities, and this is where we got our first glimpse of some rather poor CG. It's just not that good. It's very obvious that it's CG, and it looks a bit off at times. So Peter climbs up a building, runs and jumps across some rooftops, and after Peter has a rather embarrassing first attempt at swinging from the web, we see him return home. Peter goes to take out the trash and is met by Mary Jane. They talk a bit about what they want to do after high school and such, until Flash shows up to pick up Mary Jane in his new car. This gives Peter an idea.
Cool car.
Yeah, so because we all need a cool car to get women, Peter starts looking at advertisements for cars, but they are all too expensive for him. However, he also comes across an ad for amateur wrestlers. It seems that a wrestling foundation is offering $3,000 to anyone who can withstand 3 minutes in the ring with one of their wrestlers. Peter immediately begins to design a costume that he will need, because hey, what better way to use his new abilities than in a wrestling match? After a little scene of Peter training his web shooting abilities in his room, Peter gets a ride from his uncle. Before Peter leaves, he and his uncle have a little talk, and then he delivers probably one of the most famous lines in existence.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, that is one great line! And what makes it even better is the way Cliff Robertson delivers it. Just listen to the tone in his voice.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
It's just so powerful and paternal. It's like a mentor's voice softly guiding you or something. Unfortunately, it is somewhat ruined by Peter's reaction to it.
Are you afraid that I'm gonna turn into some kind of criminal? Quit worrying about me, okay? Something's different. I'll figure it out. Stop lecturing me, please.
Yeah, that kind of ruined the mood, didn't it? However, the next few lines of dialogue completely kills it.
I don't mean to lecture and I don't mean to preach. And I know I'm not your father.
Then stop pretending to be.
Douche. So after that, Uncle Ben drives off and Peter heads to the fighting arena. He checks out the wrestler he'll be up against before checking in, and it turns out to be a fearsome fighter named Bonesaw McGraw, played by professional wrestler Randy Savage. We see Bonesaw beat the crap out of another fighter, and then Peter enters the ring. It turns out that he's going to be involved in a cage match, which surprises him.
I didn't sign up for a cage match! Hey! Unlock the thing! Take the chain off!
But he still wins the fight with relative ease. After Peter wins the fight, he goes to collect his money from the fight promoter. However, Peter only gets $100.
$100? The ad said 3,000.
Well, check it again, webhead. It said $3,000 for 3 minutes, and you pinned them in 2. For that, I give you 100, and you're lucky to get that.
I need that money.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
As Peter leaves, a guy comes into the fight promoter, steals his money, and runs away. He runs past Peter, who lets him go.
You could have taken that guy apart. Now he's gonna get away with my money.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
When Peter gets outside, he notices that a crowd of people are gathered around something. He rushes in to find out that Uncle Ben has been shot. Peter watches as Ben dies in his hand, and I have to say, although this is a rather sad moment, Tobey Maguire's crying is just a bit too forced. Look at him. It looks like someone trying to make themselves cry. While crying over his uncle's death, Peter overhears the police say they located the shooter and which way he's headed. Peter runs off in pursuit of the killer and eventually catches up to the shooter as he has learned to use his web for effective web-slinging across the city. He manages to trap him inside of an abandoned building, and when he confronts him face to face, he discovers that the shooter is the same guy that robbed the fight promoter. Why, of course! So Peter knocks the gun out of the robber's hand, who then trips and falls out of a window. I guess it was just so scared it made him clumsy. We then see Peter, or rather someone which we all know is Peter, stopping various crimes around the city in his new costume. We also see a bunch of witnesses talking about him and what they think he is.
I think he's human. I think he's a man. Could be a woman.
Isn't she just describing Tobey Maguire? We then get introduced to probably my favorite character in this film, Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons. I just love J.K. Simmons' performance. It's hilarious, and yet it fits the character perfectly. I mean, just look at some of his stuff.
Oh, what is he, shy? I trust my barber. You take the pictures, I'll make up the headlines, okay? Call the patent office, copyright the name Green Goblin. I want a corner every time somebody says it. Stop the presses, send my wife some flowers, and bring me an ad bill. What do you mean you don't work for me? You're hired. Now that you're hired, you're fired. Now that you don't work here, we can be friends. Now that we're friends, how come you never call? Some friend you are!
Anyway, Jameson and his staff at the Daily Bugle, a newspaper, are discussing whether or not to keep a story about Spider-Man on the front page. At first, Jameson doesn't like the idea.
Who is Spider-Man? He's a criminal, that's who he is. A vigilante. A public menace. What's he doing on my front page? He's a hero! Then why does he wear a mask? What's he got to hide?
However, he suddenly changes his tone when he hears how well the newspaper with the Spider-Man story did.
We sold out 4 printings.
Sold out?
Every copy.
Tomorrow morning, Spider-Man, page 1 with a decent picture this time. Move Conway to page 7.
Did he say something about a Conway?
Move Conway to page 7.
Oh, I've always wanted an excuse to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Conway Twitty. So Jameson decides he wants Spider-Man as tomorrow's front page story as well, but unfortunately they don't have any decent pictures of him. Jameson takes this with relative ease, however, as he has an idea of how to get some photos.
If we can get a picture of Julia Roberts in a thong, we can certainly get a picture of this weirdo. Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Peter then spots the ad for pictures of Spider-Man and gets an idea.
Hello. Let's go! Move it! Watch the street!
Cheese!
That's right, he begins to take pictures of himself in action, which actually brings up a few questions. For instance, how did he know to set up the camera the way he did? Did he know about the crime in advance? If so, how? And considering his photos are usually pretty close up to the action and sometimes from angles that it would be impossible for a regular observer to be in, why doesn't anyone get suspicious? I mean, just look at some of the pictures Peter tries to sell to Jameson. There's no way anyone other than Spider-Man himself could take these, and yet no one seems to wonder how Peter got them? So anyway, Peter tries to sell his pictures to Jameson. Unfortunately, Jameson only has one thing to say about them.
They're crap. 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 Mega crap.
Luckily for Peter, Jameson is just trying to play hardball so he won't have to pay Peter that much for them. He does eventually give Peter a decent price for them though, and Peter gets a job. Cut to Oscorp headquarters, where Norman Osborn is informing the board of directors that things basically couldn't be going better.
As of today, Oscorp Industries has surpassed Quest Aerospace as the principal supplier to the United States military. In short, ladies and gentlemen of the board, costs are down, revenues are up, and our stock has never been higher.
However, Norman gets some bad news when the head of the board reveals that just because of this success, they have decided to sell the company.
What? You're out, Norman.
So Norman loses his job, and we cut to something called a Unity Festival, where Macy Gray is performing and Peter is taking pictures. However, the Green Goblin suddenly shows up and kills Oscorp's board of directors, and puts everyone at the festival in danger thanks to his explosive devices. Peter springs into action, changes into his Spider-Man costume, without getting so much as a glance from anyone by the way, and starts kicking some goblin ass. but Goblin's glider punctures one of the giant festival balloons, which knocks over part of the stage. This wouldn't really be a problem if it wasn't for this one really, really dumb kid, who seems more interested in dying rather than moving his stupid little legs. Even Spider-Man can't believe this kid.
Come on, move, kid.
I mean, for crying out loud, he even leans towards the falling stage and balloon. Of course, Spider-Man rescues the dumb little prick, probably wishing he hadn't, as some police officers tries to stop the Goblin.
Hold it right there! I surrender!
Oh boy.
Hold it right there!
And none of the police officers tried to stop him because... I guess it'll have to be up to Spider-Man to do any good, so he starts fighting the Goblin, but the Goblin lands the first punch. He then gets back on his glider and tries shooting Spider-Man down. Spidey swings off on a balloon to get out of the way of a rocket and spots Mary Jane hanging precariously on a falling ledge. Spidey jumps over to Mary Jane, only to get slammed into the wall by Goblin. Spider-Man manages to fight him off, however, and he rips out part of the glider's engine or something, and the Goblin flies off. Spider-Man then jumps to catch a falling Mary Jane, swings her over to a safe spot, apparently attaching his web to the air, and promptly leaves the scene. Back at the Daily Bugle, Jameson is talking to Peter about the newest story involving Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, a name that Jameson apparently came up with, and how Peter feels it's slanderous to say that Spider-Man and the Goblin are working together.
It is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
Suddenly, the Green Goblin bursts through Jameson's office window, grabs him by the throat, and demands to know who the person taking the pictures of Spider-Man is. Before he gets a clear answer though, Spider-Man arrives only to be drugged by Green Goblin and taken away to some rooftop somewhere. Green Goblin tries to make a deal with Spidey.
Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together. What we could create. Or we could destroy. Cause the deaths of countless innocents in selfish battle again and again and again until we're both dead. Is that what you want? Think about it, hero!
Cut to Mary Jane coming out of a building as Peter comes up to her.
Hey, it's me again.
Peter offers to buy her a meal, but she says she's having dinner with Harry. The two then part ways, but a bunch of seedy-looking guys follow her into an alley. As the thugs are about to hurt her, Spidey comes in to save her, apparently being able to shoot 4 strings of web at a time. What, does he shoot web from his feet too? For some reason, he fights without his mask on, but it's okay because of course no one manages to spot him. Least of all Mary Jane, who is standing just a few feet away watching the entire fight. Cut to the next day. We see a building is on fire as Spider-Man swoops in and saves whoever's in there. However, it turns out to be Green Goblin in disguise, something most of us could have seen a mile away considering the shape of this person's head, and he promptly sucker punches Spidey across the room while letting out quite a scream. Man, the foe sure has a pair of lungs on him. So, after Spider-Man refuses Goblin's offer to join him, they have themselves a little fight scene, during which Spidey gets cut by a spinning blade thing that Goblin uses. Of course, Spider-Man manages to fight the Goblin off, and we cut to Norman arriving to a Thanksgiving dinner at Harry and Peter's apartment. While Norman is getting ready to carve the turkey, Aunt May notices that Peter is bleeding.
How did you say that happened?
Bike messenger. Knock me down.
You'll excuse me, I've got to be going.
Why?
Something has come to my attention.
In the next scene, we see Green Goblin attacking Aunt May as she says her nightly prayer.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us.
Deliver us! Finish it! Finish it!
Huh. The Green Goblin sure is serious about his religion. Who knew? So Aunt May ends up in the hospital as Peter realizes that the Goblin has figured out who he is. While at the hospital, Peter realizes that Mary Jane might be in trouble since, as Aunt May puts it,
would it be so dangerous to let Mary Jane know how much you care? Everybody else knows.
Peter decides to give Mary Jane a call to see if she's alright and to warn her. However, he only gets her answering machine, and while Peter is leaving a message, the Green Goblin suddenly picks up.
Can Spider-Man come out to play?
No, he's He's grounded!
He's a very naughty boy!
So, of course, the Green Goblin has kidnapped Mary Jane and placed her on top of a bridge tower. The Goblin also takes a gondola half full of kids hostage. When Spider-Man arrives, the Goblin gives him a choice.
Let die the woman you love, or suffer the little children. Make your choice, Spider-Man, and see how a hero is rewarded.
The Goblin then drops both Mary Jane and the gondola car full of kids, and Spidey jumps after Mary Jane, then uses his web to get over to the gondola car as well. He manages to save both of them, but he is then grabbed by Goblin and hurled into a building. The Goblin then proceeds to kick the shit out of Spidey, and here we get some examples of the worst fucking screams I have ever heard from a superhero ever. Just listen to how much of a pussy these screams make Spider-Man sound like. I'm sorry, but that's really the type of screams you want to go with? They don't exactly make you sound fierce. Yeah, I know, he's getting the crap kicked out of him, but come on, he's Spider-Man. Spider-Man should not under any circumstances be making this sound. Spidey tries his best to fight off Green Goblin, but he ends up being beaten to a pulp. However, when Green Goblin tells him that he's going to finish off Mary Jane as slow and painfully as possible, Spidey gets really mad and kicks Goblin's green ass. This causes Norman to reveal his identity and beg for his life.
Mr. Osborn,
Peter, thank God for you.
you killed those people on that balcony.
The Goblin killed. I had nothing to do with it. Don't let him take me again. I beg you, protect me.
However, he suddenly activates his glider and sends it towards them with its blades out. However, Spider-Man jumps out of the way, leaving Norman to get impaled by his own glider. And I have to say, getting impaled in the crotch has got to hurt. In fact, let me try something here. I think this could work. Ah, much better. So Norman dies, Peter brings him back home as Harry walks in on him, thinking that Spider-Man killed his father, and we end the film at Norman's funeral, with Peter walking away after kissing Mary Jane, and saying they can only be friends. Peter ends the film with a little speech.
Whatever life holds in store for me, I will never forget these words. With great power comes great responsibility. This is my gift, my curse. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man.
So there you have it. That's the Spider-Man film. As you can see, it's not as good as you might first think, but I would be a complete idiot if I called it a bad film. Yes, it has a few plot issues, the CG doesn't hold up all that well, and there are plenty of things to make fun of, but all in all, this film is really fun to watch. And isn't that the most important thing? As said, it's not perfect, and it's not as good as some people, possibly including yourself, would have you think, but I don't think you can argue with the fact that it is a really well-made film that will give you plenty of enjoyment, especially if you're willing to overlook a few things. So, with that said, I'm going to sign off for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you check back next week for a new one. Thanks for watching. Bye.